Maya Johnson lived a simple life in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. Her days were filled with work, taking care of her little garden and walking her dog Max. She enjoyed the peace that came with living in a quiet neighborhood. But one thing always caught her attention: the house next door. It wasn't the house itself, but the people inside it. More specifically, it was the child who lived there. The boy's name was Ethan Carter. He looked to be about 8 years old, with big brown eyes that often seemed sad. Maya had noticed him playing alone in the yard sometimes, but he never smiled or laughed like other kids his age. Instead, he kept to himself, wearing clothes that were too big for him. At first, she thought maybe he was just shy. But over time, she started seeing things that worried her. One afternoon, while watering her plants, Maya saw Ethan come out of his house. His sleeves were rolled up, and she could see bruises on his arms. They looked fresh, angry marks against his pale skin. Her heart sank. She wanted to say something, to ask if he was okay, but she hesitated. What if she was wrong? What if it wasn't her place to interfere? But then, a few days later, she heard crying. It was late evening, and she was walking Max around the block when faint sobs reached her ears. They were coming from Ethan's house. Maya stopped in her tracks, gripping Max's leash tightly. She glanced toward the house, her mind racing. Should she call the police? Or should she knock on the door and see what was going on? Her instincts told her to act. She couldn't just walk away. Taking a deep breath, Maya approached the house. The windows were dark except for one, where a flickering light revealed shadows moving inside. She knocked on the door firmly, holding Max close to her side. No one answered. She knocked again, louder this time. Finally, the door opened. A man stood there glaring at her. It was Daniel Carter, Ethan's father. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a scowl that made Maya feel uneasy. "What do you want?" he growled. "I heard crying," Maya said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "Is everything okay?" Daniel crossed his arms. "Mind your own business," he snapped. Before she could respond, he slammed the door shut. Maya stepped back, her heart pounding. Something was very wrong. She knew she couldn't leave things as they were. That night, she called Child Protective Services and reported what she'd seen. But hours passed and no one showed up. Frustrated and worried, Maya decided she couldn't wait any longer. The next day, she kept a close eye on Ethan's house. Around dinner time, she saw Daniel leave in his truck. This was her chance. Leaving Max safely indoors, Maya walked over to the house and knocked again. When no one answered, she tried the handle. To her surprise, the door creaked open. Inside, the house was messy, with dishes piled in the sink and toys scattered across the floor. Maya called out softly, "Ethan, are you here?" There was no response. She moved cautiously through the living room and down a narrow hallway. At the end of the hall, she found a closed door. Pushing it open, she saw Ethan sitting on the edge of a small bed, clutching a stuffed bear. His face was streaked with tears, and his eyes widened in fear when he saw her. "It's okay," Maya whispered, kneeling down to his level. "I'm not going to hurt you." Ethan didn't speak. He hugged the bear tighter, trembling. Maya noticed more bruises on his legs, and her chest tightened with anger and sadness. "Do you want to come with me?" she asked gently. "You'll be safe." For a moment, Ethan hesitated. Then slowly, he nodded. Maya held out her hand, and after a pause, he took it. Together, they left the house and hurried back to hers. Once inside, Maya gave Ethan a glass of water and wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. She called Child Protective Services again, insisting they come immediately. While they waited, she sat with Ethan, talking softly to calm him down. By the time the authorities arrived, Ethan had fallen asleep on her couch, exhausted, but finally safe. That night changed everything. For Maya, for Ethan, and even for the community. Little did she know, her decision to step in would ripple far beyond that quiet suburban street, touching lives in ways she could never have imagined. After that fateful night, Maya's life changed forever. Child Protective Services took Ethan into their care temporarily while they investigated his situation. Maya couldn't stop thinking about the frightened little boy who had trusted her enough to leave his home. She visited him at the shelter where he stayed during the investigation, bringing him snacks, toys, and books to make him feel more comfortable. Each time she saw him, Ethan seemed a little less scared and a little more willing to talk. The authorities worked quickly, gathering evidence against Daniel Carter. Neighbors who had suspected something was wrong came forward, sharing stories of late-night shouting and strange behavior from the Carters' house. With Maya's testimony and the bruises on Ethan's body as proof, the court decided it wasn't safe for Ethan to return to his father. Daniel lost custody, and soon after, Ethan moved in with Maya as her foster child. At first, Ethan struggled to adjust. He barely spoke, flinching whenever someone raised their voice or moved suddenly. Nights were the hardest. He often woke up crying from nightmares. But Maya never gave up on him. Every day she reminded him that he was safe now, that no one would hurt him anymore. She cooked his favorite meals, read him bedtime stories, and let him choose which movies they watched together. One evening, as they sat on the couch eating popcorn and watching a cartoon, Ethan turned to Maya and asked quietly, "Why are you being so nice to me?" Maya paused the movie and looked at him. "Because you deserve kindness," she said simply, "and because I care about you." Ethan didn't say anything else that night, but the next morning, he hugged her tightly before leaving for school. It was the first time he'd initiated physical affection since coming to live with her. Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes but blinked them away. She knew healing wouldn't happen overnight, but moments like these gave her hope. As weeks turned into months, Ethan began to open up. He started talking about his interests: robots, dinosaurs, and drawing pictures of superheroes. Maya encouraged him to explore these passions, buying him sketchbooks and signing him up for art classes at the local community center. For the first time in his life, Ethan discovered what it meant to have hobbies and dreams. School became another challenge. Because of the trauma he'd experienced, Ethan found it hard to focus in class and often got into arguments with other kids. Maya met with his teachers regularly, explaining his background and working with them to create a supportive environment. Slowly but surely, Ethan's grades improved and he even made a few friends. One particularly memorable moment came when Ethan brought home a painting he'd done in art class. It was a colorful picture of a superhero flying over a city skyline. At the bottom, he'd written, "This is my mom. She saved me." Maya stared at the painting, her heart swelling with emotion. She hugged Ethan tightly, telling him how proud she was of him. By the end of the first year, Ethan had transformed in ways Maya hadn't thought possible. He laughed freely, played outside with neighborhood kids, and called Maya Mom without hesitation. Though he still had moments of fear or sadness, he handled them better than before. Thanks to therapy sessions Maya ensured he attended regularly. On Ethan's 9th birthday, Maya threw him a small party. She invited a few of his friends from school and decorated the house with balloons and streamers. As they sang Happy Birthday, and Ethan blew out the candles on his cake, Maya realized how much joy this little boy had brought into her life. He wasn't just her foster son, he was her family. That night, as they sat together looking through old photo albums, Ethan said, "I don't remember much about my old house. Just that it was cold and dark. This feels like home now." Maya smiled, ruffling his hair affectionately. "It is your home," she told him, "and it always will be." Though there were still challenges ahead, Maya knew they could face them, together. She had saved Ethan from a life of pain, but in doing so, he had also saved her. Together, they had built a bond stronger than either of them could have. Years passed, and Ethan grew into a bright, curious teenager. By the time he turned 15, he was no longer the shy, scared boy who had first come to live with Maya. Instead, he had become confident, passionate, and full of ideas. Much of this change was thanks to Maya's unwavering support and encouragement. She had always believed in him, even when he doubted himself, and that belief had helped him find his place in the world. Ethan's greatest passion was robotics. It all started when Maya bought him a beginner's robotics kit for Christmas one year. At first, he wasn't sure what to do with it. But after watching online tutorials and reading instruction manuals, he built his first simple machine, a tiny car that could move forward and backward. Seeing how proud Maya was of his creation inspired him to keep going. Soon he was building more complex projects, spending hours tinkering with motors, circuits, and sensors. Maya did everything she could to nurture his interest. She signed him up for an after-school STEM program where he learned advanced skills from experienced teachers. On weekends, they visited science museums and tech expos together, exploring new innovations and meeting engineers who shared their knowledge. Ethan soaked it all up like a sponge, eager to learn as much as possible. One day, while flipping through a school flyer, Maya noticed an announcement about an upcoming citywide science fair. "You should enter," she suggested casually over dinner. Ethan looked hesitant. "I don't know. What if my project isn't good enough?" Maya smiled warmly. "It doesn't matter if you win or lose. What matters is trying your best and showing everyone how talented you are." Her words gave Ethan the push he needed. Over the next few weeks, he poured his heart into designing a robot capable of sorting recyclables. He worked tirelessly in his room, surrounded by sketches, notes, and half-finished prototypes. Maya often brought him snacks and checked in to see how things were going, offering advice when asked, but mostly letting him figure things out on his own. Finally, the big day arrived. The gymnasium hosting the science fair buzzed with excitement as students set up their displays. Ethan felt nervous standing beside his table, adjusting his robot one last time. When the judges approached, he explained his project clearly and confidently, demonstrating how the robot used sensors to identify different materials and sort them into bins. To his surprise, people seemed genuinely impressed. A crowd gathered around his booth, asking questions and complimenting his work. Maya watched from a distance, beaming with pride. No matter what happened, she knew Ethan had already won by overcoming his fears and sharing his talent with others. At the awards ceremony later that evening, Ethan's name was called for second place in the engineering category. He walked up to accept his ribbon, his face glowing with happiness. As he returned to his seat, he caught Maya's eye and mouthed, "Thank you." She nodded, blinking back tears. The science fair marked a turning point for Ethan. It boosted his confidence and showed him that his hard work paid off. From then on, he threw himself into his studies with renewed determination, earning top grades in math and science. Teachers praised his creativity and problem-solving skills, and classmates admired his willingness to help others understand difficult concepts. Despite his success, Ethan never forgot where he came from. Sometimes late at night, memories of his old life crept back, flashes of anger, fear, and loneliness. But whenever those feelings surfaced, Maya was there to remind him of how far he'd come. "You're stronger than you think," she would say, "and you have so many people who love you." On his 18th birthday, Ethan sat down with Maya to write a letter to his future self. They laughed and reminisced about all the milestones they'd celebrated together. The first time he rode a bike, his first home run in baseball, and the countless nights spent talking about dreams and goals. As Ethan sealed the envelope, he turned to Maya and said, "When I'm older, I want to make you proud. Not just because of what I achieve, but because of the person I become." Maya hugged him tightly. "You already make me proud every single day," she replied. "Never forget that." As Ethan prepared to graduate high school and head off to college, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. Maya had saved him not only from a life of pain, but also from losing faith in himself. Because of her, he had discovered his potential and found a purpose. And though he was excited about the future, he knew one thing for certain. No matter where life took him, Maya would always be his hero. One quiet evening, as Maya sat on her porch reading a book, she heard the sound of a car pulling up outside her house. She glanced up curiously, wondering who could be visiting at this hour. Her neighborhood was usually calm, with most people settling down for the night by now. To her surprise, a sleek black car came to a stop in front of her driveway. The door opened, and a tall man in his late 40s stepped out. He wore a perfectly tailored suit that made him look both professional and polished. His short gray hair and confident posture gave him an air of importance, but his warm smile softened his appearance. Maya set her book aside and stood up, unsure what to expect. The man approached her porch and stopped at the bottom step. "Good evening," he said politely. "My name is Marcus Hale. I hope I'm not disturbing you." Maya shook her head, though she remained cautious. "Not at all. How can I help you?" Marcus hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "I wanted to thank you for something you did years ago, something that changed my life." Confused, Maya tilted her head. "I'm sorry, but I don't think I know you." "You wouldn't," Marcus replied quickly. "But I owe you more than I can ever repay. May I come in?" "It's a long story." Still puzzled but intrigued, Maya nodded and invited him inside. They sat down in her cozy living room, where Marcus began to explain why he had come. "I used to be married to Daniel Carter's sister," he said, referring to Ethan's abusive father. "Her name was Lisa. For years she covered up the abuse happening in that house. She told herself it wasn't her problem, that it was none of her business. But when you intervened, when you saved Ethan, you forced her to confront the truth." Maya listened intently, her brow furrowing as she tried to piece everything together. Marcus continued. "Lisa realized she couldn't keep ignoring the situation. She filed for divorce shortly after your report to Child Protective Services. That decision freed me from a toxic relationship I had stayed in far too long. Since then, I've been able to rebuild my life." He paused, looking directly at Maya. "You didn't just save Ethan that night. You saved me too, and countless others whose lives were affected by Lisa's choices. I've spent years trying to find a way to repay you for what you did." Maya felt overwhelmed by his words. She hadn't thought about the ripple effects of her actions back then. All she had wanted was to protect a frightened little boy. I didn't know," she admitted softly. "I only did what I thought was right. And that's exactly why I'm here." Marcus said earnestly. "People like you, people who act selflessly without expecting anything in return, are rare. I want to honor that. I want to give back to the community because of what you inspired me to do." Maya leaned back in her chair, processing everything he'd said. "What did you have in mind?" she asked cautiously. Marcus smiled. "I'd like to fund a project. A community center dedicated to helping abused children and their families. A place where kids like Ethan can find support, guidance, and opportunities to thrive. I want to name it after you. The Maya Johnson Hope Center." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes as she absorbed his proposal. She had always dreamed of making a bigger impact in her community, but she never imagined someone else would offer to make it happen for her. "That's incredible," she whispered. "But are you sure? This is a huge commitment." "I've never been more certain of anything in my life," Marcus replied firmly. "You gave me a second chance, and I want to pay it forward. Together, we can create something truly special." Over the next hour, they discussed the details of the project. Marcus explained that he had already secured funding and begun reaching out to architects and designers. He envisioned a space with counseling rooms, classrooms, recreational areas, and even a small library. The goal was to provide resources and hope to families in need. As the conversation drew to a close, Maya walked Marcus to the door. "Thank you," she said sincerely, "for believing in this idea. And in me." Marcus shook his head. "No, thank you. None of this would have been possible without your courage and compassion." After he left, Maya stood on her porch for a while, staring at the stars. She thought about how one decision, stepping in to help a child in need, had led to so many unexpected blessings. Not only had she given Ethan a better life, but she had also unknowingly inspired others to heal and grow. The next morning, Maya called Ethan, who was away at college, to share the news. He was thrilled, promising to volunteer at the center whenever he had time. Together they began dreaming of ways to make the project a reality, not just as a tribute to Maya's heroism, but as a beacon of hope for everyone who needed it. With Marcus's support, the plans for the community center quickly came to life. Maya threw herself into the project, determined to make it as impactful as possible. She spent countless hours meeting with architects, designers, and local leaders to ensure every detail aligned with their vision. The center would be called Hope Haven, a name that perfectly captured its purpose, offering safety, healing, and opportunities to those in need. Construction began on an empty lot donated by the city, located in a neighborhood similar to where Ethan had grown up. It was a place where families struggled daily, facing challenges like poverty, violence, and neglect. Maya believed Hope Haven could become a lifeline for these communities, a place where children and parents alike could find hope and help. Every step of the way, Maya worked closely with Marcus. While he handled the financial side of things, she focused on designing programs that would truly benefit the people they aimed to serve. Counseling services would be available for abused children and their families, along with workshops on parenting skills and conflict resolution. There would also be after-school tutoring, art classes, sports activities, and even a robotics club inspired by Ethan's passion. Ethan himself played a big role in shaping the center's offerings. During school breaks, he traveled home to assist Maya and share his ideas. His enthusiasm was contagious, and soon other volunteers joined the effort. Local businesses donated supplies, teachers offered free lessons, and retired professionals signed up to mentor young people. The entire community rallied behind the project, eager to see it succeed. As the months passed, the once empty lot transformed into a vibrant hub of activity. Workers laid bricks, installed windows, and painted walls in bright, cheerful colors. A playground took shape outside, complete with swings, slides, and a basketball court. Inside, rooms were designed to feel warm and welcoming, with cozy furniture, colorful murals, and plenty of natural light. One sunny morning, Maya stood on the construction site with Marcus, reviewing the progress. Holding the blueprints, she pointed out areas she thought needed adjustments. "What if we add more bookshelves here?" she suggested, gesturing toward a corner of the library. "Kids love having access to books." Marcus nodded approvingly. "Great idea. We'll make sure there's enough space for reading nooks, too." Nearby, a group of volunteers planted flowers and trees around the perimeter of the property. Children from the neighborhood watched curiously, some even pitching in to help. Maya smiled as she saw how excited they were about the center. "This is going to change so many lives," she said softly. "It already has," Marcus replied, glancing at her. "Look at everything you've accomplished." Maya shook her head modestly. "I didn't do this alone. You've been amazing, Marcus, and the whole community has come together to make it happen." By the time Hope Haven opened its doors 6 months later, anticipation had reached a fever pitch. Flyers had been distributed throughout the area, announcing grand opening events filled with music, games, and free food. On the big day, hundreds of people turned out to celebrate. Families explored the facilities, kids raced across the playground, and teenagers gathered in the tech lab to try out computers and gadgets. Maya gave a speech during the ceremony, her voice trembling with emotion. "This center isn't just about helping individuals, it's about building a stronger, kinder community," she told the crowd. "It's proof that when we work together we can create something beautiful." Ethan stood proudly beside her, clapping along with everyone else. He had designed a special exhibit showcasing his own journey, from surviving abuse to thriving. Thanks to Maya's love and guidance, visitors left notes of gratitude and encouragement on a bulletin board near the entrance, promising to support the center however they could. In the weeks that followed, Hope Haven became a cornerstone of the neighborhood. Parents attended counseling sessions and learned healthier ways to communicate with their children. Kids discovered new hobbies and talents, gaining confidence along the way. Teenagers found mentors who helped them navigate tough decisions about school and careers. For Maya, seeing the center thrive was deeply fulfilling. She often walked through its halls listening to laughter and chatter, feeling grateful for every person who had contributed to making it a reality. But she knew the work wasn't done yet. There were still countless families in need, and she was determined to keep expanding Hope Haven's reach. One evening, as she locked up the center and prepared to head home, Marcus approached her. "You've done incredible work here," he said warmly. "But I think your story deserves to be shared. People need to hear about what you've achieved." Maya hesitated. "I don't want the attention," she admitted. "All I care about is helping others." "I understand," Marcus replied. "But sharing your story might inspire even more people to take action. Imagine how many lives could change because of it." Maya thought about his words as she drove home that night. Maybe he was right. If telling her story could encourage others to step forward and make a difference, then perhaps it was worth considering. For now, though, she focused on the present, the lives being transformed right before her eyes, and felt a deep sense of peace. Hope Haven was more than just a building. It was a symbol of resilience, compassion, and the power of community. And Maya knew it was only the beginning. As Hope Haven continued to grow and inspire the community, Maya received news that shook her deeply. Daniel Carter, Ethan's abusive father, had been released from prison after serving nearly a decade behind bars. The information came in the form of a letter from the parole board, notifying her as part of their protocol, since she was listed as a key witness in his case. Maya felt a mix of emotions, anger, fear, and uncertainty. She worried about what Daniel might do now that he was free. Would he try to harm her or Ethan? Or worse, would he attempt to reconnect with his son? Ethan, who was studying engineering at college, reassured her that he wasn't afraid of his father anymore. Still, he urged Maya to take precautions. "You've done so much for me," Ethan told her over the phone one evening. "Please don't put yourself in danger because of him." But Maya refused to live in fear. Instead, she decided to confront Daniel directly, not out of anger, but to make it clear that his past actions would not define his future. With Marcus by her side for support, she arranged a meeting in a public park where they could speak safely. On the day of the meeting, Maya arrived early, her heart pounding but her mind calm. Marcus accompanied her, standing quietly nearby while she waited under a tree. When Daniel finally appeared, he looked different, older, thinner, and more worn out than she remembered. His once menacing presence seemed diminished, replaced by something closer to shame. "Thank you for coming," Maya said as he approached. Her voice was steady, though inside she felt anything but. Daniel hesitated before speaking. I heard about the center you started. People are saying good things about it." Maya nodded. "It's helping a lot of families heal. Families like yours used to be." The words hung in the air between them. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Marcus before focusing back on Maya. "Look, I know what I did was wrong," he admitted gruffly. "I've spent years thinking about it in prison, about how I failed Ethan and everyone else." Maya studied him carefully, searching for sincerity in his expression. "Do you mean that?" she asked. "Or are you just saying it because you think it's what I want to hear?" "I mean it," Daniel insisted, his voice cracking slightly. "I've had a lot of time to reflect. I'm not proud of the man I was, but I want to change. I have to." For a moment, Maya considered walking away. She owed him nothing, no forgiveness, no second chances. Yet deep down, she believed everyone deserved an opportunity to grow, even someone who had caused so much pain. "If you're serious about changing," she said slowly, "then prove it. Get help. Talk to a counselor. Find ways to make amends without hurting anyone else." Daniel nodded eagerly. "I will. I already signed up for therapy through my parole program. I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. For everything." His apology didn't erase the past, but it gave Maya hope that maybe, just maybe, Daniel could turn his life around. She didn't trust him completely, not yet, but she chose to believe in the possibility of redemption. After the meeting ended, Marcus walked Maya back to her car. "That took a lot of courage," he said admiringly. Maya shrugged. "It's not about forgiving him. It's about holding him accountable while giving him a chance to do better. If he truly changes, then maybe some good can come out of all this. Back at home, Maya called Ethan to update him on the encounter. He listened quietly, processing her words. "I don't know if I'll ever forgive him," Ethan admitted. "But I'm glad you stood up to him again. You always show me what real strength looks like." Over the following weeks, Maya kept tabs on Daniel's progress through updates from the parole office. To her surprise, he followed through on his promises, attending therapy sessions regularly and volunteering at a local shelter. While she remained cautious, she couldn't deny that his efforts were genuine. Meanwhile, Hope Haven flourished, touching more lives than Maya ever imagined. Stories poured in from families who had found healing within its walls. A single mother shared how counseling helped her break free from an abusive relationship. A teenager credited the robotics club with sparking his interest in engineering. Months passed, and Hope Haven became more than just a building. It was a beacon of hope for the entire neighborhood. Families who once felt trapped by their circumstances found strength and support within its walls. Children laughed freely, knowing they were safe. Parents learned new skills and gained confidence to face life's challenges. And through it all, Maya remained at the heart of it, guiding and inspiring everyone she met. To celebrate the center's first anniversary, Maya and Marcus organized a special event called Hope Haven Celebration Day. It was an opportunity to thank the community for their support and showcase everything the center had accomplished over the past year. Flyers were distributed throughout the area, inviting everyone to join in the festivities. On the day of the celebration, the courtyard buzzed with excitement. Brightly colored balloons floated above picnic tables, laden with food donated by local restaurants. Kids ran around laughing, their faces painted like tigers and butterflies. Volunteers led games and activities, while musicians performed lively songs on a small stage. Everywhere you looked, there were smiles and laughter. Maya stood near the entrance, greeting visitors as they arrived. Beside her, Marcus helped direct people to different areas of the event. "You did this," he said quietly, nodding toward the crowd. "All of this is because of you." Maya shook her head modestly. "No, we did this together. Everyone here played a part." As the day went on, Maya took a moment to step back and observe everything around her. She saw families sitting together under shaded trees, sharing meals and stories. She watched teenagers huddled in the tech lab collaborating on projects. In the art room, kids proudly displayed paintings and sculptures they had created. Every corner of Hope Haven overflowed with joy and creativity. One of the highlights of the celebration was a speech given by Ethan, who had returned home from college for the occasion. Standing on the small stage, he addressed the crowd, his voice filled with gratitude. "When I was 8 years old, my life changed forever," he began. "I didn't know it then, but the woman who saved me wasn't just giving me a second chance. She was showing me what it means to be brave, kind, and selfless." He paused, looking directly at Maya. "Mom, you've taught me that real heroes aren't the ones with capes or superpowers. They're the people who see someone in need and step up, no matter how hard it is. You didn't just save me, you inspired an entire community to come together and make a difference." The audience erupted into applause, many wiping away tears. Maya hugged Ethan tightly when he stepped off the stage, overwhelmed by emotion. "Thank you," she whispered, "for reminding me why we started this journey." Later that afternoon, a surprise guest arrived, Daniel Carter. He approached Maya hesitantly, holding a handmade wooden plaque engraved with the words, "Hope starts here." "I made this for the center," he said quietly. "It's not much, but I wanted to contribute somehow." Maya accepted the gift with a thoughtful expression. While she still kept her guard up around him, she appreciated his effort to turn his life around. "Thank you," she replied sincerely. "This will look perfect inside." Throughout the rest of the day, Daniel stayed on the sidelines observing the festivities without drawing attention to himself. Maya noticed how he interacted cautiously with others, offering help wherever he could. Though she knew trust would take time, she felt hopeful about his progress. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the courtyard, Marcus joined Maya near the stage. "Look at what you've built," he said, gesturing toward the lively scene. "This place is proof that even in the darkest times there's always hope." Maya nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "It's not just mine. It belongs to everyone who believes in making a difference. Together, we've created something amazing." That evening, as the celebration wound down, Maya walked through the empty halls of Hope Haven, reflecting on the day's events. She thought about how far she'd come since rescuing Ethan, and how much further they could go if they continued working together. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but she knew they had the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the main lobby, she placed Daniel's plaque on a prominent wall, where it caught the fading sunlight. The inscription, "Hope starts here," felt fitting, not just for the center but for every person who walked through its doors. For Maya, it was a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness could spark monumental change. With one last glance around the quiet building, Maya turned off the lights and locked the door behind her. As she drove home under the starry sky, she allowed herself a moment of peace, knowing she had done everything she could to create a brighter future, for Ethan, for the community, and for herself. Years flew by and Hope Haven continued to transform lives. It became a cornerstone of the community, offering support and opportunities to countless families. But for Maya, nothing compared to the pride she felt watching Ethan grow into a remarkable young man. He graduated at the top of his class from college, earning a degree in engineering, a dream he had nurtured since childhood thanks to her encouragement. On the day of his graduation, Maya sat in the audience, beaming with joy as Ethan walked across the stage to receive his diploma. She clapped louder than anyone else, tears streaming down her face. Beside her, Marcus smiled proudly, knowing how much this moment meant to both of them. When Ethan spotted them in the crowd, he paused briefly to wave, his eyes shining with gratitude. After the ceremony, they gathered outside for photos. Ethan hugged Maya tightly, lifting her off the ground. "I couldn't have done this without you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Yes, you could," Maya replied, patting his cheek. "You're strong and smart. I just reminded you of what you already knew." Ethan laughed, shaking his head. "Still modest, huh? Well, either way, this is your victory too." The celebration didn't end there. That evening, Maya hosted a small party at Hope Haven, inviting everyone who had supported Ethan over the years. The center was decorated with balloons and streamers, and tables were piled high with food and desserts. Kids ran around playing games, while adults shared stories about Ethan's journey from a frightened little boy to a confident graduate. During the party, Marcus stood up to make a toast. Holding up his glass, he addressed the crowd. "When I first met Maya, I knew she was extraordinary. But seeing everything she's accomplished, saving Ethan, building Hope Haven, inspiring an entire community, it's clear that she's one of a kind. And Ethan, you're living proof of what can happen when someone believes in you. Congratulations to both of you." Everyone cheered, raising their glasses. Maya blushed, unused to being the center of attention, but she couldn't hide her happiness. Looking around at the faces of friends, neighbors, and volunteers, she realized how much their collective efforts had achieved. As the night went on, Ethan pulled Maya aside for a private conversation. "Mom, I've been thinking," he began. "I want to dedicate my thesis project to you." Maya raised an eyebrow. "To me? Why?" "Because you saved me," Ethan explained. "Not just from my old life, but from giving up on myself. My project is about creating affordable robotic prosthetics for kids who can't afford them. It's inspired by everything you taught me, that technology should be used to help people, not just make money." Maya hugged him tightly, overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness. "That sounds perfect, Ethan. You're going to change so many lives with that project." In the months that followed, Ethan threw himself into his work, designing innovative solutions that earned recognition from experts in his field. Meanwhile, Maya focused on expanding Hope Haven's reach. With Marcus's continued support, they launched new programs aimed at breaking cycles of violence and poverty. The center's success caught national attention, inspiring similar initiatives in other cities. One day, Maya received a letter from a prestigious organization honoring individuals who made a significant impact on society. To her astonishment, she had been nominated for an award recognizing her contributions to child welfare and community development. At first, she hesitated to accept, feeling uncomfortable with the spotlight. But Marcus convinced her that accepting the honor would inspire others to take action. At the award ceremony, Maya delivered a heartfelt speech thanking everyone who had supported her along the way. "This isn't just my story," she said. "It belongs to every person who has ever stepped forward to help someone in need. Together, we've shown that kindness and courage can create lasting change." By the time Ethan completed his master's program, he had developed a prototype for his robotic prosthetic design. It was affordable, durable, and easy to use, making it accessible to families who otherwise couldn't afford such technology. He named the project Hope Limb, dedicating it to Maya and the values she instilled in him. As Ethan prepared to start his career, Maya reflected on how far they had come. From the night she rescued him to the thriving community they had built together, their journey was a testament to resilience, love, and the power of believing in others. Though challenges remained, she knew they could face anything as long as they stood side by side. One evening, as they sat together on the porch of their home, Maya turned to Ethan. "Do you remember the first time we watched the stars together?" she asked. Ethan nodded, smiling. "Of course, you told me that even the darkest nights end with sunrise. And look at us.